You ever stop and think about why we have weekends? Or workplace safety rules? Or even a minimum wage? Well, a lot of that stuff traces back to one single powerful idea, the trade union. So what are they, really? How did a bunch of folks with very little power on their own manage to, well, change the world? Let's get into it. And this quote, man, it just nails it. It's from way back during the Industrial Revolution, and it gets right to the heart of the problem. It captures this deep, burning sense of injustice, the feeling that the very people creating all the wealth weren't seeing any of the benefits. And that feeling, that was the spark that lit the fuse for the entire trade union movement. So to really get why unions even started, you've got to understand the massive challenge facing any single worker back then. We can call it the lone worker's problem. Just look at this breakdown. It lays the power imbalance out so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, you have the single worker. If you complained about your pay or how dangerous your job was, you were basically voiceless, and you were so easily replaced. But on the other side, the employer held all the cards. They set the rules, they controlled the conditions, they had all the power. And this all boils down to one really harsh idea: individual dispensability. It's the cold, hard fact that to a big company, any one worker was, well, disposable. If one person quit or got fired, who cares? There were dozens others lined up, ready to take their place. One person by themselves just wasn't essential. But then something clicked. A totally revolutionary idea started to spread through the working class. And it was a complete shift in thinking that was about to change everything. And this was the big idea, the absolute game changer: collective indispensability. This was the watershed moment. People started to realize that, yeah, an employer could fire one person, no problem, but they couldn't fire everyone. The business would just stop. It couldn't run without its entire workforce. The bottom line was, together, they were indispensable. So how do you turn that idea into actual power? Well, it was kind of like a three-step process. First, you have that aha moment of realizing your strength as a group. That realization is the foundation for collective bargaining, negotiating as a team instead of one-on-one. And the final crucial step, you make it official. You form an organization to fight for your share of interests, a trade union. And listen, we are not talking about a handful of people in a back room here. This quote from India really shows you the scale we're talking about. The Jamshedpur Labor Association was born in a meeting of more than 25,000 people. I mean, that's a football stadium full of people all wanting the same thing: organized representation. All right, so you've got your union. Now what? What does it actually do? What's in the toolbox that it uses to flex that collective muscle for its members? Okay, at its core, a union is fighting for the basics. We're talking about things like clean and safe working conditions, not being forced to work insane hours, and of course, getting paid a fair wage. But it's also about stuff that's a little harder to pin down, like job security. And this is a big one: having a real say in the decisions that affect your job. Now, the biggest tool in that toolbox, the one everyone knows about, is the strike. It's the ultimate power move. It's the purest expression of collective indispensability. Everyone just stops working to force the employer to come to the table and listen. And there are even different flavors of it, like a slow-down strike, where you don't stop completely, you just collectively take your foot off the gas to grind production to a halt. And, the impact of this whole movement wasn't just about getting a better deal at one factory. It started to fundamentally change societies and even the very laws that govern them. And believe me, this was a long, hard fight. This timeline gives you just a little snapshot. You had early, desperate protests like the Luddites smashing machinery, all the way to huge victories like the Indian Trade Unions Act of 1926, which finally made unions legal. And that same year, the general strike in the UK showed just how powerful the entire working class could be when they stood together. This was a battle that spanned generations. So what did all that struggle actually get them? Well, a lot. Many of the legal protections we just take for granted today, like laws stopping child labor, rules for workplace safety, even acts that make sure you get paid on time, all of that was won because of pressure from the trade union movement. They literally turned protests on the street into laws on the books. But look, the story of trade unions is far from finished. Their journey is still going, and today they're facing a whole new set of challenges here in the 21st century. Which, of course, brings us to the big question for today. Is the fight really over? I mean, have unions basically achieved everything they set out to do? One of the toughest challenges today actually comes from the inside. Just check out these numbers from Great Britain. Average attendance at local union meetings can be shockingly low, sometimes just 3 to 15%. Keeping your own members engaged and active, the very source of your collective power, is a massive hurdle these days. So you've got those internal problems, and then you've got constant pressure from the outside, too. All throughout history, governments have passed laws to limit what unions can do, things that restrict protests or make it harder to call a strike, like some of the acts passed in the UK back in the 80s. That political push and pull never really goes away.
And all of that leaves us with this final, really critical question. The whole idea of work is changing right under our feet. We're in a world of freelance gigs, remote jobs, and rising automation. So what does collective power even look like today? What does it mean for workers to come together now? The answer to that? Well, that's being written as we speak.